a little more spice on because you want to, what would you say? You want to challenge your guests a little bit in an interesting way, and you're thinking this all through. And
for the same reason you'd wear funny socks or a tie that has just a little bit too much on it, you know?
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, that's actually a feature of general problem solving. Like when people are solving a problem, especially if they might get the wrong frame, moderately distracting you from the central concern is an optimal way to
exactly. You need to do that.
So what I'm hearing both of you say is the prioritization is really a multi-dimensional optimal gripping.
That's right.
We're constantly trading up.
Okay, well then we can also expand on that to some degree, because multi-dimensional and optimal brings a lot of other concerns into it. So imagine that one of the principles, and Kant moved towards this with his theory of universal ethic in some sense, although I think it, I hesitate to criticize Kant, but I think that there's a deeper explanation for what he observed is, well, how should I treat you? Well, that's a complex question, but one of the constraints is, well, what if we meet 100 times? So we're going to establish an actual relationship. So however I conduct myself in the present moment has to be in accordance with a value hierarchy that takes into account the desirability of our mutual interrelationship into the future. And that produces a very serious series of, I would say, often intrinsic constraints. So I can't be too insulting. I can't be too unwelcoming. I have to offer you something approximating a true reciprocity for the thing not to degenerate. And all of that, and I would say that also governs how you cook for someone if you actually want to make friends. So it's like treat other people as you would like them to treat you. And it's pretty funny that that's the intrinsic ethic in a recipe. And so that's such a funny argument.
We'll get right back to Jonathan Pageau and John Vervaeke in just a moment. First, we'd like to tell you about Elysium Health. Founded by Dr. Leonard Guarente, a renowned MIT researcher and 30-year student of the science of aging, Elysium Health is on a mission to translate critical scientific advancements in aging research into accessible health products and technologies. Their flagship product, Basis, replenishes youthful levels of NAD+, activating what scientists call our longevity genes to promote healthy aging and keep you feeling younger, longer. Many customers report benefits such as sustained, maintained energy levels, less general tiredness and fatigue, more satisfying workouts and support in recovery from workouts, healthy skin, and general health and wellness. Matter, Elysium's brain aging supplement, was developed in partnership with the University of Oxford. Matter does what no other product does. It slows the shrinking of our brains. For most of us, brain shrinkage begins in our 30s and impacts memory, learning, and even physical activity. Lifestyle factors such as alcohol consumption, smoking, and poor sleep habits accelerate this process. Matter is patented and clinically proven to slow the age-related loss in the brain's memory centers by an average of 86%. Many Matter customers have reported improvements in memory and cognition. Go to explorematter.com/Jordan and enter code JBP10 at checkout to save 10% off Matter prepaid subscriptions, as well as other Elysium Health supplements.
Okay, so let's move to the second presupposition. To act in the world, so it's kind of a corollary with the first or something equivalent. To act in the world, we must prioritize our actions. I don't think we probably have to cover that, right? Because it's perception is an action already, because you have to move your eyes and orient your head. And
optimal gripping is an action.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So I think that goes with it.
Yeah, okay, so we'll leave that. Okay. Now this is a nice switch, I think. Any system of priorities is a structure of values, and then I sneak something in, an ethic. So I'm kind of defining ethic as something approximating perhaps an internally, it's like a game, it's an internally consistent hierarchy of value, but it's going to have to be iterable in the sense that we already discussed. So that's kind of what I'm defining an ethic as. And then you could also think of it as something that's embodied. So when you're watching someone on a screen in a movie, say a character, they embody an ethic. That's what makes them interesting. It's a whole structure of value, and they're acting it out. And it's a system of priorities of perception and action. And that's a value structure. The reason it's a value structure is because, well, what's the difference between prioritization and value? You prioritize what you value. And so
I think the difficulty I have is if you use the word ethic, because the word ethic is so charged with morality and also the way that we're supposed to act between each other, then I think it it can be a little bit misleading because value
Because
is
it
great.
implies good.
It seems to, well, I think good is fine. That is the good in the sense that there's also a good glass, which has no moral bearing at all. There's a good way to walk down the hall, which is not a moral question. There's a, the good way to fish, but these are not ethical.
Well, maybe they are.
Maybe. But I think that's maybe the little place where I would wonder about.
Yeah,
the word
so
ethic.
that's a terminological problem in some sense, right? Well, it is.
I don't know. What do you think that it seems to, as the word ethic seems to imply interpersonal relationships more?
Yeah, the word ethic has been reduced to the moral interactions.
Ethical.
Yes. Whereas typically philosophers will use the term normativity to be a much more general term for the idea that there's a governing principle for your behavior.
Okay, so I'll have to make sure I clarify that when I read about this, but I was also thinking about, common fictional tropes in popular culture. So if you're watching a mafia movie, one of the things that's interesting about a mafia criminal, as opposed to just your ordinary criminal, is that he's not entirely chaotic, right? He abides by the mafia code. So he's loyal to
a certain code.
Yeah, he's loyal to a code. So it makes him a quasi-ethic actor. And I would say, well, the mafia character does embody an ethic. And I'm kind of struggling for a word that isn't ethic. You might disagree with the ethic.
No, but I think it's because, I think you can actually take this a lot further than just a mafia person. I think there's a way that you can be a good mass murderer. That in the sense that you have discovered the hierarchy of values, things you need to value in order to become a good mass murderer, and now you're engaging in them towards that hierarchy of values. There is you could say there are satanic hierarchies,
the Columbine killers, for example, were doing exactly that, and most of the mass shooters, there's a contest going on.
Yeah.
They know about each other. They're often, in fact, one kid who was planning to do this wrote me.
Really?
6 months ago, he had a 50-page manifesto ready and the weapons. And he watched this YouTube video discussion I did with Warren Farrell, and where we touched on this issue, and he decided that there was seriously something wrong with him and that he should get some help and not do this. But he was in contact with one of the people who went out and shot up a high school. They had been in contact online, so he was that far away from it. Yeah, but so there is this. It's not you can have a chaotic criminal who's completely unpredictable, but then you don't have much of a plot, right? He's not an interesting character.
He's going to get caught really fast.
Well, there's that too, right? The far more interesting ones have I'd say they have an ethic. Now, it's not an ethical ethic.
Right, so that's why the word ethic is difficult, because you could say that ultimately what's gonna happen is that there will be a hierarchy of value systems that will be more